As a violist, I relate to that feeling of being marginalized because we're like this endangered species of an instrument. And so it's just kind of like a trifecta experience for me. It's an unknown composer, it's an unknown female composer, and it's the viola. Right. So I feel like there's just, it's the perfect package. My name is Mitsuru Kubo, and I play the viola. Most violists, they start on the violin and then they decide later on to switch over. However, I started on the viola, so I like to consider myself a purebred violist. I had when I was little, when I was 7 years old, there was a violist living in my basement, a college student. And so I was interested and I took lessons with her, and I just loved the way the viola sounded in the orchestra, where we sit in the orchestra kind of in the middle, tucked in between the strings and also in between the conductor and the winds, and I just felt like I was the center of attention.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I loved it.
That's awesome. So did you play in like youth symphonies then, or
my whole life
school?
Was playing in orchestra. As soon as I could read the music adequately, my mom just threw me in the deep end.
Okay.
And I remember I was one of the youngest, one of the shortest in the string section. So short that my little legs couldn't reach the ground. They were just flapping around, and so she would make me carry around the bright yellow footstool for me to, put my feet on so I wouldn't kick my feet around.
I see. Was there a moment where you were like, okay, this is now, like, this is my job, this is my career, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life? Was there kind of like a moment?
I wouldn't say there was a single moment. So just a little background, my mom is a musician.
Okay.
And so
what instrument does she play?
She plays piano.
Okay.
And she teaches early childhood music education. I grew up, her music school was in our house, was our basement.
Oh, wow.
She had a studio. And so basically when I look back on my childhood, early days, I don't remember a time when there wasn't something musical going on in my life.
I see.
Whether it was attending her music classes, taking piano lessons, doing orchestra, playing viola in orchestra. Basically, I was just always doing music.
I see.
And I mean, maybe during my teenage years, I would dream about, I think I thought I would be a professional snowboarder at one point.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I knew my path is music. My path is music, and I felt most passionate about doing that. And then it wasn't until after college, I took a break. It was when I stopped for only the summer. Okay. But after 2 weeks of not having access to my instrument, I just broke down. I thought I was having, midlife crisis. Like, it's the end of my life. I can't play. I forgot how to play. Right. It was very dramatic. But that kind of really solidified it for me. Like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I'm supposed to be doing.
So it was missing it, actually.
Exactly.
That you were like, okay, wait, this is something that meant way more to me than maybe you thought it did. Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So where did you grow up then?
So I started out in Seattle.
Okay.
And then when I was in middle school, I went to Korea.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Initially, it was just a foreign exchange 1 year only program. But then once I got there and I learned the language and I got to know the neighborhood of Seoul, I discovered that there was a very prestigious music school there near my dormitory. And at that point, I knew I wanted to do music, so I decided to stay there. So I lived there for 5 years.
Wow.
Lived in Korea for 5 years. And then after that, I came back and finished school in Seattle. I did my undergrad at UC Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Go Gauchos. That was a dream, California. And then from there, I went to Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore. So that was a huge shift from West Coast to East Coast.
Yeah.
Met my now husband. We came up to New York, New Jersey area, and that is now where I live with him and my 2 kids.
So how did you get involved with the Equal Billing Project then?
Yeah, so through Matt, who is a friend I met out in New York. And he is, I mean, anybody who's met Matt knows that he's a DeCrook scholar. He's obsessed. He's like, president of her fan club. And he actually asked me if my previous teacher would be interested in doing this project.
Okay.
And when that didn't pan out, he just said, well, why not you? And I was, I was a little bit intimidated at first because this is my first recording experience, but I've been having a great time preparing this piece, doing this music, and
yeah. So what is that preparation like? What does that look like then? Like, there's no there's no recordings you can listen to refer to. Yeah. Like, so what do you do? Like, how do you make your musical decisions? What is?
Yeah, it's been tough because it's originally a saxophone piece, and nobody's ever played it on viola with orchestra on recording. So I take a lot of musical liberties, actually. I've done a lot of editing and considering things like, this, for instance, they'll write rests, pauses in the music for a saxophone player to breathe because they have to breathe in order to play.
Right.
Whereas I can just continuously play without any break in my sound. And so a lot of times I will just sustain through the lines so that there's no, breathing mark. And there's certain register issues between saxophone and viola, which I play around with. But because I was able to make my own decisions, take my own liberties, every time I made a decision, it felt like, I'm making this my own piece. This is definitely Mitsuru's version of this piece. Right. And so that kind of really inspired me and motivated me to keep going.
That sounds like a very beautiful thing, actually, to feel like you have such a big hand in like how the music is being shaped and everything. I mean, with a lot of music, when you play it and there's previous recordings, I think a lot of influence often like takes part in like your decision aspect, at least, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You've heard it one way, so sometimes it can be actually like challenging to make different decisions sometimes.
Right.
So this is like wholeheartedly your recording then. Right. That must feel beautiful. What is the piece like? What does it sound like?
So it's a very cute piece. Okay. The movements are not these long, sprawling musical symphony type things. They're kind of these short, sweet songs that just take you on this very quick journey through the one musical idea. And the way she writes it is very French sounding. I don't know how else to describe it. She has a very clear French sound, which is gorgeous. And the way the orchestra kind of lays it out, kind of like laying out a nice, cozy, comfy, soft bed for the viola to just sit on and play the line. It makes it really, makes it a fun ride.
I heard a lot of other people say that her music sounds cinematic.
Yes.
Does your piece also sound kind of cinematic?
I think it actually, on this CD, actually I haven't heard the other 2 pieces, but I've heard the cello concerto, and the cello concerto is very cinematic, which is so different from my piece. My piece is very kind of traditional and classical. It fits in that like classical box, which I think is very interesting for DeCrook, and she kind of has these time periods in her writing where she is, she's surrounding herself with a lot of cinematic writing gigs, and then she's doing a lot of saxophone-centric things, and So I think it's interesting just to see the progression of her writing.
So the Equal Billing Project, it aims to record and support the music of a deceased composer that wasn't equally billed during their time. So that phrase, equally billed, that's kind of a huge part of this project.
In all art fields, fine art, literature, there's many instances where there's the big five or, just the household names.
Right.
And I think when people go to classical concerts, there's this misconception that, people want to just hear what they've already heard in the past or what they've heard used in movies, and yes, that can be a nostalgic, romantic experience, but at the same time, it's interesting because all of the mainstream composing that's happening on TV or in movies, it comes from composers that not a lot of people have heard of in the past. There's this movement in the cello concerto. Everybody keeps saying, it's Star Wars. It's John Williams. John Williams must have heard that and thought, Darth Vader theme right there.
Right.
And it's always interesting to find those little, musical hooks that are related to something that we hear every day, on memes and Instagram or whatever. And especially as a violist, I relate to that feeling of being marginalized because we're like this endangered species of an instrument. And so it's just kind of like a trifecta experience for me. It's unknown composer. It's an unknown female composer, and it's the viola. Right. So I feel like it's the perfect package.
Right, yeah, we're lifting up.
Checking all the boxes.
Yeah, there we go. The vision for the future of this project is that all these recordings, all the sheet music, all the biographical information about these composers, the hope is that this can kind of shape and diversify concert programming in the future, and as well as music education. I wonder maybe what your historical music education has looked like. Have you heard about a lot of female composers or things like that through your music history?
There's a ton of female composers, actually, if you just look. Right. It's tough because you just have to work a little bit harder to find them, and they're just not easily available. It's not top of the Google search, results, and it's, it takes just a little bit of extra, effort, but especially as a violist, there's been tons of music written by female composers. There's also music that's constantly being newly discovered. Composer, it's like there was a box on the street, or, it's like there was a box in this attic, in the walls, gathering dust, and we realized, who is this mystery composer? Right. And I think what's great if more orchestras will program these new unheard of works, it kind of piques people's interest and they want to go down that rabbit hole of finding composers, or they hear a certain sound that they just connect with immediately and want to go down further.
Right. So. Yeah. I love, you talked about Google search. Of course, one of my first reactions when I heard Fernanda Crook is to Google it, right? And so when, I don't know if you did the same thing when Matt was like Fernanda Crook, I swear the only thing that popped up was Matt's page about it. So that was your experience too then. Yep. You were like, wow. And he's like,
what is this? What?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like then, trying to find information about her? Did you do that a little bit to help you shape your your decisions when you're recording for this project?
I did do some deep diving. I've talked to a lot of saxophone players actually, because it's a saxophone piece, and I mean, I just now ran into a saxophone player, and he immediately wanted to talk to me because it is just a standard rep for the saxophone students.
Right.
And so for a violist to play one of their pieces, they get really into it. And
in a good way.
in a good way, totally not territorial at all,
yeah.
which is very nice.
We love that.
Yes. Open arms, and you know, they're always like, it's so interesting on the viola, like so different, and I did have to come up with my own program notes for this piece for one of the performances, and so when I did that, I found a lot of background. I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 dissertations written on de Crook, you know, all saxophone players, and but other than that, she uses some cool folk tunes in there. Actually, really rando fact. The second movement, Noel, is based on a French Christmas folk tune that I actually sang as a kid in choir. That I remember. I like remember the French lyrics and everything. It was so random. And it just kind of, so I have like this nostalgic experience whenever I play it. But
do you have a favorite composer?
It's too difficult to say who my favorite composer is. It's just impossible. But who I am really into right now is Florence Price. She is just hot stuff right now, and especially the recordings by Catalyst Quartet. I just listen to them on repeat. I can't stop listening to it. It's so well performed, and the music is so engaging and new. It has this fresh sound, and it sounds American too, which is very cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah. Florence Price.
Yeah, I like the answer. So on another side then, because you said there's a lot of composers, do you have a favorite composer, like, to play their music?
Am I supposed to say Fernanda Crook? I feel like...
No.
Fernanda?
It sounds like I'm setting you up, but I swear I'm not.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. I do like American composers in general, so just to run along that theme. Anything Copland, Bernstein, I just love the poppiness. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just very mainstream, but I do like pop music, which might be unusual for a classical musician. But so when I hear the Broadway style rhythms or jazzy rhythms in American music, American composers, I'm all about that. So Copland, Bernstein, Barber, just across the board.
So playing with Jackson, what has that been like? You played with us before.
Yeah, it's been a long run with Jackson Symphony. I think the first time I played was 2017, and then 2019, and then 2021, and now I'm again in 2023. Oh my God, it's been every 2 years. That's so funny. So yeah,
Seems like it was by design, but
yeah, anyways, it's been great because I've learned so much. I've come such a long way as a soloist, as a musician, and actually so has Jackson Symphony. It's been such a pleasure to just see how they've grown as a symphony, and playing with them today in rehearsal was just such a breath of fresh air because it just felt so complete. There were no missing pieces, or the sound was just so full and lush, and it's just been a nice journey along with the Jackson Symphony as well. It's nice. Yeah, and seeing familiar faces is also always nice.
Yeah, that's nice. Oh, it's beautiful to hear you say that too, because we started as such a small community orchestra.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and now we're making recordings that are getting reviewed worldwide, basically. So, yeah, it's really very...
bravo. I mean, it's really fun to see. Yeah.